Hi, and welcome to Role Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR, episode 202, Art Smells.
Art Smells.
Art Smells. So we're trying something new with Role Playing Public Radio because video, we're going to do the pivot to video, which I've heard it worked well for news media traditionally.
Oh man, yeah, transformed Facebook, I hear.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Meta.
All the news media worked well with that. So we're doing it. We're going to also post this episode to audio, so if you're just listening to this, there's a video version of this on YouTube, so you can see me and Chris. Hello, Chris. How
Hello.
You doing? Yeah.
If you can't experience the phenomenon of sight, you're out of luck.
Yeah, so I just want to be able to shoot video now, and we're going to be, we're trying out these lavalier mics now, and eventually we're going to be working in green screen and other cool things, but we have a lot to talk about this episode because there's been discourse in the role-playing.
The hell you say?
Yeah. Discourse just continues in social media. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the role of art and graphic design in role-playing games. So I'm not going to name the blogger, but like a person on Twitter basically, where he posted a blog, and I think he posted to multiple networks, about his frustration with art in role-playing games. And he talked about how he did this Kickstarter for a book, and they actually got like $25,000 for it, but they had to spend a lot of it on art, and he had to wind up using a lot of stock art for it. And, he's like, well, I challenge you to make a role-playing, or to buy role-playing games that don't have art, or fancy graphic design, I think is what he said in the blog post. And, there's just this challenge of making art role-playing games, and I sent it here to Chris, and now we're going to talk about it. Also, we are going to be talking about this beautiful book, Art by Nour, which is from Johan Nour, a Swedish graphic designer and visual artist, best known for Merkborg, which is a beautiful game, and we'll be flipping through it and also maybe getting some insert shots of it. But it's a beautiful book, and he was very kind to send me a review copy. So, holy shit, this book is absolutely beautiful and a work of art in of itself. Yes, let's talk about Art by Nour. This is a really interesting book. It is a drawings and doodles by Johan Nour, made between 2006 and 2023. Chris, what do you think of this book?
I think it's enormous. It's richly colored.
Yeah.
It is absolutely. Give me a rough page count.
It is 231 pages.
231 pages of sheer art. Relentless is what I would describe it as.
Yeah.
It in and of itself a statement of Johann's very fine work.
Mm-hmm. Johann's vision as an artist is, I'm really interested by his use of texture and sort of contrasting elements of it's a very visceral feel in all of his artwork. He really is, he's also very influenced by obviously punk and metal music aesthetics. Album art covers, there's a lot of satanic elements, pentagrams and inverted crosses. And it's very again, appropriate for, heavy metal magazine or something like that. But it's art about things falling apart, entropy taking hold, like destroying. There's always this chaotic feel in his artwork, which I really like. Even in his more pristine or precise stuff, he does maps, but there's always a bit of grime or dirt or
sprays of spit, sweat, blood, mucus.
Yeah, a lot of fluids.
A lot of fluids.
Yeah,
redolent with fluids.
Yeah. In a good way though, but I could see why this there are a lot of artists that are more architecturally precise, if you compare this the art from Lance or something like that, it was very mecha and sci-fi. It's very, that kind of art is very common in role-playing games, or the sort of painterly fantasy illustration style common in 5th ed D&D, for example, which is hazier but softer and more, I would say cinematic, but more comic book. But this is not like that. This is art that reflects the nastiness of reality, of the nastiness of being in the dirt and in the mud and somehow surviving it. There's also, Johan makes some really good points. There is a section that I really wanted to influence. He talks about art he does for other commissions, and the co-author, the guy who he talked to do Merkborg, was Pele Nielsen, and I get to interpret and visualize someone else's original idea spawned from mine and Peleg Nelson's work. This, I believe, is how you breathe new life into an artwork. The optimal way to keep creatively evolving and exchange ideas with other artists. You make something, someone else sees it and gets inspired. They make something derivative of it, and you in turn use that thing as the basis for your own art. A remix of a remix of a remix. A perfect circle of inspiration. That's like... And that's art, like that's culture, is like, we see this all over, is, you know, especially now in this global thing, people are being influenced by other cultures and other societies and other art forms in faster and faster and more interesting ways. I mean, the classic examples are obviously like, you know, cowboy movies came out, they influenced samurai movies, and then samurai films influenced cowboy movies, and then they influenced fucking Star Wars, and we, you know, and... I really like that attitude toward art. Like, I really like his reinterpretations of Quake, the Shambler from Quake and the Quake guy. Because again, you can see like the blood spatter on it and just the little yellow dots for eyes and the, like I said, a lot of his stuff is texture, but there's a lot of contrast too, because he'll make really stark line work or that's very precise, like
there's a tremendous woodcut quality to a lot of his work.
Oh yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Like woodcut to a lot of woodcut, but also Xeroxed, like a zine, like a woodcut zine, like is a good way of putting it. I really like that. That's a really good observation. But yeah, if you like art, I also really like the Wick Man, just the lantern-headed monster from Orkboard. He did like multiple illustrations of it, and of course this World War I illustration is fucking sick. So. I don't know what this book costs exactly, but it's a big fucking book, and it's, if you love artwork, you love nice coffee table books, this is a good book to just put out on a coffee table. Look, browse through this art. Our role-playing games can
browse through my mucus.
Yeah, browse through my mucus. But yeah, it's really fucking cool. And like I going through here, it was also like how much of the stuff I'd already done, like the wizard module, which is one I'd run for Role Playing Bold Radio, and just a lot of stuff I'd seen before. It's like, oh yeah, you did that. How neat stuff. But yeah, it's a very cool book.
Show him the one picture without any mucus in it.
Is it the nice one?
Yeah,
okay.
Johan drew a couple of dogs in this book, and they're all terrific. But two of them are just it's just nice. It's just, there's no menace, there's no loathing, there's no doubt, there's no mucus.
There's no mucus.
Yeah. It's like some kind of spaniel and like an Alsatian kind of looking dog. You know, kind of goofy looking, but like he can do sweet art. Mm-hmm. He could be a nice boy. He can be multi-talented.
Yeah, multi-talented, yeah. So thank you for the book, Johan, and yeah, highly recommend it. And of course, Merkborg is a great role-playing game to look through and to play. So you should also check some of that stuff. They also have a cyberpunk one called Cyborg, and yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, let's get to the meat of the issue, which is, what is the role of art in a role-playing game? So what do you think?
Well, okay. I mean, I did a little bit of research this morning, and there are certain famous published books, and those published books get illustrated versions later.
Yeah.
Like Moby Dick, for example, or Sherlock Holmes. And the illustration is an embellishment. Mm-hmm. It helps embroider the imagination. And there are certain people out there. They talk to the doctors, and it's like, no, I can't imagine. Like they cannot picture things in their mind. Like it's an actual condition. I'm not saying that's so prevalent. That's what made picture books, but it really cements. What the purpose of illustrating these books were, which is to enhance, what was written in the book.
Yeah.
And, form follows function, obviously. And, when Gygax and company were doing like their books, I'm certain that if they were at all using art, they went to the library and got microfiche and copied it and stuff like that.
A lot of the early stuff is also like I doodled in high school, so I'm gonna doodle a little orc. Like if you see those early like chainmail first edition D&D stuff.
See, there you are. Yeah. The doodle is an expression of like, this is so boring. I have to draw something here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I understand where this blogger is coming from because, like, if you're making a role-playing game, and you're a writer, primarily, and you're like, I have this great idea, I worked my ass off, I don't want people to see it and enjoy this game, and then, like, they don't go for it, and you see someone else who makes what you think is a worse game mechanically, worse writing, but it has way better art, and it sells way better, you're like, well, they just had more money, they just had, this. But like, art is, again, a creative endeavor equal to writing, so there's that. But it's also a function of money, right, too? Like, they just had more money to spend on art. But like, so I understand this frustration. But on the other hand, making a role-playing game is a multidisciplinary talent. It's not like writing a novel, which is just writing text like Moby Dick. And it's a thing that requires like multiple types of skills, like writing, editing. And I think the thing is he's overlooking, sort of dismissing graphic design, which I feels separate enough from art that it's worth talking about on its own. Like, graphic design is also information design, which is a key component of a role-playing game. To make a good role-playing game, you have to have good information design so people can learn the fucking game, If people can't find, we've all looked through role-playing game books and be like, where the fuck is that rule? Where the fuck is that spell? And you're like, well, that's a failure of information design if they can't find the information they want quickly and easily.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if your book doesn't have an index, I have a low opinion of you, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's just work. And like graphic design, it's a separate skill set from writing and creating game mechanics and that kind of thing. But like, it's just as important, I think, to create a roleplay. That's why, like, to make a role-playing game, you have to be good at a lot of different things. Or you have to get a lot of different people who are each good at that. It's like, the closest comparison I can think of is like making a movie or a TV show, right? Or any sort of video, any sort of visual storytelling thing, because you have, the writing, you have to have an idea, but you also have directing, which is like, well, the overall big picture, but like cinematography, sound, costuming, props, acting, like you need a lot of fucking people to make a movie. Yeah. And role-playing games are actually the same way. To make a good one, especially if you're competing with like, he was working on 5th Ed D&D, which is the big boy in the market, right? And that's where the big money's spent. That's where the big money's earned. I've never raised $25,000 on a Kickstarter, and I'm just doing my own on one Kickstarter. And he's done multiple things, or he's done one thing. His first project raised $25,000. That's amazing. But like, he's in a big field playing with the big boys. And so like, yeah, they're just outspending them. But, yeah, I'm kind of rambling this way, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Why does he consider himself to be in the same arena as these giant publishers?
I mean, it's very deceptive, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a book, right? It's a book, and like, you can make a book, they can make a book, and the cost of making that book is in a lot of way hidden. The cost of like, yeah, commercial artists, top of their field, professional artists, the people who do art for like Magic the Gathering. Guess what? They charge a lot for their talents because they know they can demand that people will pay that. And if you want that, like, well, that's, it's like competing with like a Hollywood blockbuster movie to a degree. I mean, it's a very, much smaller scale, but it's the same difference between like a lone designer and Wizards of the Coast.
So the gentleman that wrote this thing, the turn in that article that made it interesting is that he was working on another 5th edition book after his Kickstarter for a different group of people. Mm-hmm. And, when he was sent the particulars, like access to the hard drive so you can see the art and the text and stuff like that, he said he was shocked to see that they actually had a significant amount of stock art, which is what he had used for his prior project. Mm-hmm. And so, he was like, these people can't afford art either. But like, that's the wrong way to look at it. Mm-hmm. Because it makes an assumption that commissioned art, number one, it makes the assumption that commissioned art is the best art you can get. Yeah. It subsumes preference or usability or other things like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, I didn't pick this up, but did they go ask their work partners, why do you have this stock art? Why did, all this other stuff? It makes a lot of assumptions about, why they would do something. I mean, it could be just as simple as the people who are in charge of the art budget, they were like, we could just save $8,000 and I get to pocket that. It could be just as simple as that.
Yeah, it's budgeting. Budgeting is a fucking skill. Like, the more you spend on art, the less you can pay yourself or other people for your hard work.
It makes an assumption there that somehow that stock art is low quality art, or it's terribly base, it's terribly common.
I think the problem with stock art is that, like, the best art for a role-playing game is the thing that gives it, like, a consistent look. Like, Heart the City Beneath is a beautiful book because it was done by one skilled artist, in part. Like, I mean, obviously it had great writing, great design. A lot of great things, but like, because all of it was done by this one talented artist, it has a very unified look. Like Merkborg, for example.
Yeah.
Like, all of it was done by Johan here, and like, he fucking nailed the look of Merkborg. Like, you get what it's about, what the theme is, like what the atmosphere is. Like art also teaches the game. Like, that's an important part too, is like art like illustrates what this game's atmosphere is about, what this aesthetic is about, and like what kind of feelings you're supposed to evoke in the game, And stock art is stock. It's one size fits all. It's not going to be very evocative. But like, yeah, it's challenging though, because the thing is, there are ways to compete with the big boys, but like, you have to sort of pick your battles, right?
Why does he want to? Does he know why he wants to?
Well, I mean, like,
is it a matter of, I need to make money, I have to pay off my car?
I mean, he could just be a big fan of 5th Ed. I mean, 5th Ed is the hugest player base. Like, I mean, and like, why 5th Ed is that way is a separate issue. But like, he was comparing, to like, these people weren't like Critical Role, but they're one step below, So I think there's this, like, it's very natural to look at the biggest names, like the biggest stars in something, and be like, I should do what they're doing, That's why, when Michael Bay made, The Rock all-action movies started looking like The Rock, or it's just natural to follow the leader. So,
well, I mean, if pursuit of capital is the idea, I suppose so. Then,
I mean, not just capital, but also like artistic, like sensibility, stuff like that. I mean, he could also just be a sincere fan of 5th Ed and likes the game and likes what it does and likes the community. So he wants to work in that space, and that's fine. But like, it's like making a low budget movie, with your phone and then comparing yourself to the latest Marvel movie,
Yeah, but there's several examples of, films being shot on, low grade technology that have gone to make millions.
Yeah, but they weren't aping like a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. Yeah. They were doing something very different and unique.
So why would you do that with a phone?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, phones now can shoot in 4K and all this other shit.
I mean, we're stretching the analogy here, so, but I mean, like,
my point is, if you want to, you can make, like, Merkborg was made on a very low budget and like was made by a couple people, and it became a big hit by RPG standards.
Did you read in this book how they started?
Yeah.
Johan, I understand, was just on Facebook, and he saw this other person. He said he didn't really interact with him, never really knew him, and this person was just posting his poetry on Facebook. And Johan just liked it enough, and so they started. He DM'd him or something, and just like all this grew from that. I mean, like in the book, he says, "I've had these sketches for years, and now I can apply them to the game and stuff like that." But like, that's serendipity. That's just that's dumb fuck luck.
Well, it's also like the right thing at the right time, right? Like like Merkborg is in part such a brilliant game because like it struck the right chord at the right time, and like you have. I'm trying to find the cover art for Merkborg. I should have put more post-it notes in here. Oh wait, the yellow maybe. Here we go. Merkborg is, you see this cover and it's beautiful, and like the thing that really works about this also because it's yellow, and like someone on Twitter asked, why'd you make the cover yellow? And then he showed a screenshot on drivethrurpg.com of like all these RPGs and then Merkborg right in the middle, and like Merkborg was the only yellow cover. And he's like, that's why like everyone else is doing that. And I think the thing is, if there part of anything that's a big hit is out of your control. You can't like make people like your game,
right?
Or whatever artistic work it is. So, right place, right time. This, and like Merkborg gets the vibe of doom metal like perfectly, and like all these like black metal, all these like very dark fantasy aesthetic thing. And it had a perfect marriage of art and game design. Like, it's only 20 pages, but it's very evocative. It's very like, it's rules light, very OSR, but like it has a thing about like the dooms where like you roll to see how long the world's gonna last, and eventually it's gonna fucking end, and like that's it. But like they worked on a low budget because they knew what they had a vision, and they stuck to it, and it was an interesting and original vision. But like, which is taking more risk, but like you can do that in a creative way that's low budget. Like Merkborg was like one artist and one writer, and like the art, and Johann's also a game designer too. He's written stuff too, I believe. But like that's just a couple people, but like with a good vision. And there are techniques you can do, like photography is becoming more of a thing in role-playing game art, you know, which you can Photoshop, and you can endlessly Photoshop things. And like there's this thing called photo bashing where you take photos and you mash them and sort of distort them and take them. And then like later on in the book, he shows like photo bashing with public domain art with a game called Into the Odd, which has, these are like taken from public domain artwork from like the 19th or 18th century, and then he just photoshops it into like a crazy, like look at this guy, like he's great, he's a great guy. So there are techniques.
What's his name? It's actually Guy.
Yeah, it's actually Guy. He's just the guy.
He's just Guy.
He's just Guy.
Hey, Guy.
Yeah. So that's the key here is he is working within his means. But you know, the necessity is the mother of invention. So if you have a low budget, figure out ways around it. But like, if you want to work, I want to make something that looks like Wizard of the Coast put it out. Well, that's really hard to do when you have very little money. And again, it's a multidisciplinary talent. You need to like, if you want to do that, you need to start learning to draw yourself, or get a friend and hold something they care about for ransom. It's like, I need 10 illustrations, or your Funko Pops get thrown in the garbage. I don't know.
The person who wrote the blog, they introduced a term called art pressure.
Yeah,
and the way the article is written really does make it seem like it's an affliction. It's that has struck the TTRPG community, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But with the art pressure, this is surely subjective.
Oh, yeah.
His goals are obvious. Mm-hmm. But it really seems like the pursuit of those goals are causing him anguish.
Yeah, 100%.
He doesn't exactly end it, but it's towards the end. He writes a sentence that basically says, if this art pressure continues, if people at my level can't, get good art in their books, then we're just going to die out. Which is, that's a little dramatic.
Yeah.
And it's also like a little threatening, like you better give me some good art or you'll miss me when I'm gone.
Yeah. Buy this RPG or
art dies.
Yeah. Or the artistic field gets it. Yeah.
And it really just seems like, for this person, if they could just recalibrate their goals, then they could see the full flower of their talents when it comes to writing RPGs.
Yeah. I think, and part of it is also like, the standards for RPG art, like Caleb did, like for example, spent a lot of money on art for Red Markets, and it's a big book, and it's like the average is like one piece of art per 4 to 8 pages, is what I've picked up over the years as sort of the standard. But like there are books that have more, there are books that have less, and especially now with like graphic design tools, it's not just InDesign anymore. There's a software called Infinity Publisher which can do graphic design just as well as InDesign if you learn how to use it. Graphic design can carry you a long way. Like Blazing in the Dark has beautiful graphic design and very good information design, I think. And that helps a lot because it doesn't have as much art. And art they have is black and white or like in grayscale, which is obviously cheaper than full color art. Yeah. When you're commissioning it. So yeah, it's just a matter of like what the game looks like and what it delivers and whether that matters. Like, yeah, if you're doing epic fantasy, you kind of want something that looks grandiose and lush and evocative of old Renaissance paintings and, or Lord of the Rings and that kind of stuff, because that's the genre, right? It's larger than life, Like, if you want to work in that space, like, I don't know what you're expecting. If you create a different atmosphere, like doom metal, where everything's black and jagged and twisted and red and like everything's falling apart, everything's decaying, everything's murderous, then like Johann's art works perfectly for that. You know, I showed you another game like Frontier Scum, which uses a lot of public domain line art from the 19th century because that's like a weird Western game.
Yeah.
And like, so they just literally grabbed stuff from old 19th century newspapers and photoshopped it and like reused it because that's anyone can use that stuff. And so
I looked through it and I think it looks terrific and they do great with this public aspect.
yeah, so like there's premises that are just like have a higher threshold of like production value. Also, part of this art pressures too is like for graphic design purposes, like you can't just have nonstop text. You have to have breaks to like, this is a chapter, this is a section. And so like when your text doesn't fully fill up like a page, you're like, well, there's just a blank spot now. Well, I better throw in a little goblin in this corner because otherwise there's nothing there. So there's your goblin, you know. And that's part of it too. Is just a necessity of graphic design. Is like you have to like have separate your chapter heads on the left page and then the text is on the right page, and you know.
And then there's artistic choices like to put the art in the center, like around the paragraph has to crawl around the art, like it's a big now that there's indentations and stuff, and that gets cute,
Yeah, but like low budget filmmakers, like they make movies that are like about interpersonal relationships, or like horror movies that are about like being stalked by a single villain in the woods, or a monster or whatever, or they're cursed, or like you can do like what is normally a big budget thing like time travel and do if you have something really clever like the movie Primer, but you have to like work around your limitations, and instead of like I have to make my book look like the most expensive books on the market, well, I get it, like if that's your passion, but like I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, yeah.
Let me personally anecdote this stuff. When I first started making videos back in 2020 or 2021, and you had talked to me, you knew that I was smitten with Tim Rogers, and I thought, I'm going to make an 8-hour epic video about my favorite video game. Yeah. And then, as I started working on it, I started talking to people, I fucking understood that wasn't going to happen for me.
Yeah.
That I didn't necessarily have the time, money, or talent.
Yeah.
If you watch Tim's videos, he says like, the camera that I'm filming on right now was used to shoot Lord of the Rings out in New Zealand. Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. That sounds like money to me.
Those are actually those cameras are getting cheaper all the time. But the problem with that is also Tim Rogers also experienced at like storytelling and video production. So that is the bigger thing rather than the camera.
My sight's set high, and we're taught to do that as kids and all that stuff, and it's admirable in and of itself. But I thank God came to the understanding that I was going to be miserable trying to match this person's level.
Yeah.
So it's just so I just took it way the F down, and I decided that I should ape the talents of a person who has less than 100,000 followers or whatever.
Yeah.
But I really like them, and and I'm weaning myself off them. But it's just like I understood what I could do with my talents in that time. And if what he's bumping, it's a question: is he bumping up against the wall of talent, or is he bumping up against the wall of money?
I mean, I think it's money, yeah. I mean, and it's frustrating, right? Like, but like, I don't think it's a matter, like, people are still buying more indie RPGs than they ever have before. And like, they're buying more experimental things, and they're working, and people recognize like great graphic design and artwork, but like, again, it's a multidisciplinary talent, like to make a role-playing game. And you really, you have to have those skills, or you have to outsource it. And And like his thing of like buying games that have minimal art or no, like the examples he were all had like interesting, like good graphic design, which again doesn't cost money. Like, and I wouldn't even say fancy, but it's functional, and like one or two pieces of art. But like there's a lot of that now, like Mothership and Fist and other games like that. They have a thriving third party like scene where people are making these little zine games and brochure adventures and stuff like that. And it's I really like some of the things he had were like two of the examples they had I really like because they were, I'm going to draw a dungeon in a notebook and then just take photos of it. And like,
that's called Thousand Doors Room.
There's 1,000 statues, I think.
1,000 statues, yeah. And when I saw that, I was delighted. I was like there's that layer of remove.
Yeah.
Like I was looking at crime scene photos and stuff.
Yeah. It's artistic. Like
see?
Yeah, and it's a good vision, and like you could do a lot with that of like just drawing stuff by hand and working from there. But like the other examples he has, they're I'll put up some screenshots of it, but like they're pretty like good graphic design, like not like you know, award-winning, like, world-shattering graphic design, but very functional, very clean. And I mean, in general, I do agree with him. In general, people should be buying more indie and, like, weird RPG stuff. Like, like going out more, like, there's so much stuff right that you can't find at all, but at least look a little bit. Like, if you bought any of those itch.io bundles for various charities or good causes over the last couple of years, and God knows there have been enough of them, look through them a little bit and see what you can find. Like, there's cool games out there. There's cool, interesting things out there that are done on very low budgets or no budgets. You just have to look a little bit. So, I mean, you know, I agree with him on that point in general. You just look out for more stuff. But, like, yeah, it's, you know, art pressure. If you're in a certain area of the field, if you're trying to, like, get those 6-figure Kickstarters, you got to get those big numbers, you know, and, like, and you want to, you know, like, I get that competitive commercial environment, but that's a very rarefied field. And that's not, and if you want to work in that field, well, that's going to be a lot of fucking pressure. It's just in general, because it's like a lot of work, pretty high stakes, and, you know, you sink or swim, you know, and yeah, but if you're, yeah, so my advice also be, maybe if you're getting too stressed out of it, maybe take a step back. I don't know. Yeah.
But so okay. Let's bottom line. Art pressure, is it a thing?
In, like, the higher echelons of RPGs, I think there is a tendency for the bigger games to, like, we need to spend this money. If we're, like, it's also a commercial thing. Like, if you spend more money on fancy art, you're going to get bigger numbers from crowdfunding campaigns. Like, because people will see big art. Like, people will absolutely do that. But, like, you don't need good art. You don't need expensive artwork to make a good game. Or an award-winning game, a critical game, like something that breaks through, like Merkborg. You don't need a lot of money to make a Merkborg. You need it to make 6 figures on your 5th ed compatible Kickstarter.
You just need a kick-ass Swedish artist to get you on Facebook. Be like, I saw your poetry. Very well done.
Yeah, find a collaborator and just work out in partnership with somebody. Yeah. Find a good Swedish artist. That's the real solution. Yeah. Who likes your shit, and then have them illustrate everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Johan, send your friends on the Facebook, have them message people, give out hope.
Yeah, unless you want to, like, form a company and get people and get funding like that. There's, like, levels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have 10 people working on your game, guess what? It's going to be a better polished game than, like, if you're doing it by yourself. Weirdly enough, 10 people can do more work than one person, usually, unless they're really badly managed. But yeah, like, worry more about having an interesting and original idea, I think. That's what I'm working on. Like, that's my angle, is always make something that I want to play and something that interests me. Like, something that doesn't exist, but I want it to exist.
Right.
Like, and, like, if it's like, I got to get my 5th ed compatible book to get 6 figures, like, well, that's not me. Like, you don't need to do that. Like, yeah. So
I think I get what this guy's saying, but, you know, for me, you know, for me, you know, this is just subjective. You know, for me, the solution is simple.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, yeah, you're not going to compete with those guys.
Yeah.
You're not. You didn't wake up one day and walk into a spectacular situation where you were working for Wizards of the Coast, which is how anyone who works there got there.
Yeah.
So, you know, bide your time until you get lucky enough, or just, you know, you have to recalibrate what is going to satisfy you, what's going to make you happy. Mm-hmm. You know, and just, you know, for me, I had to recalibrate my artistic expression down to, you know, if I can just get it out and it looks like how I want it to look like, and it's there, and at least one person watches it, great, I did my work.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, he has to find out when he can tell himself I did the work and close his eyes. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, so please let us know in the comments if you like what you think about the role of art in role-playing games. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I don't know how the YouTubers do it. I guess I'm a YouTuber now.